We're here, mindset shift, how to achieve more with less. Today we got AJ Zlagin hanging out with us for the Minefield. What's up, Zlagin?
What's up, guys? How you guys doing today?
What's up, Zlagin?
What's up, brother?
You good there, AJ?
Did we lose Keith? Oh yeah, I thought we lost Keith.
No,
I'm here.
I'm here. Wait, we're here to hang out with Minefield today. We're talking about how to achieve less with more. And you and I talked a little bit yesterday. I sent you a note here before the show, and I said, "Hey, let's talk about this idea of no." And let's talk about this idea about, where is my note here today? I lost it here. We talked about this idea of saying no, AJ, and the power of saying no. And we're talking today about mindset shift, how to achieve more with less. And often we got to say no before we can get yes done. Let's get into it, AJ, and talk about mental toughness and saying no for more. AJ.
Yeah, you guys were just talking about the idea of reframing something, right? So I think that's where we start at. When we hear the word no, when we hear a word like boundaries, and we bring in boundaries, and they sound very restrictive, right? They have a negative connotation to them. But really using the word no, establishing boundaries is really connected to our growth. They're opportunities that allow us to continue to grow and challenge ourselves. When we're saying no, I believe we had a conversation here maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was John that had mentioned when you're saying no to something, you're really saying yes to something else.
Yes.
And so it's that reframing it, right? When I'm creating a boundary, I'm not putting up a wall. I'm not building this brick wall that doesn't allow me to grow or see or learn or anything what's on the other side of that wall. When I'm creating a boundary, I'm drawing a line, but there's no obstruction to my view of the world and my experiences and what I could take in and what I can learn and continue to grow. So it's really just about us reframing, shifting how we see those words, the word no, the idea of a boundary, and realizing that it's really about our growth potential.
Good morning, Shinku. I see you there. AJ, you and I chatted yesterday about boundaries, and we were both really excitedly leaning into it because society has always, at least from my perspective, my point of view, used boundaries as a negative. There's a guy listening to us right now. Yeah, I'm going to say Johnny. Johnny growing up and he hears boundaries like, wait a minute. Shoulders go out, chest goes up. Marty's like, boundary? What do you mean? I don't want a boundary. What are we talking about? You're putting some constraint around me? AJ, talk about how boundaries actually can be and perhaps might want to be reframed as a positive attribute instead of a negative. A boundary with our partner, a boundary with our children, a boundary with our own mirror. Let's talk about how we can reframe this idea of a boundary, AJ. And maybe that's what we want to do here in the lab with our audience over time, is creating a mindset shift that boundaries are a good word and a good thing to lean into. AJ Zlagin.
Yeah, so it's exactly as you described. It is a potential for us to grow. So our boundaries that we currently have for ourselves, we'll create a boundary based on our experiences, and based on our experiences and our beliefs at the time, we generally create a set of rules for ourselves. You might have, I'm trying to think of a good kind of basic example here. Maybe someone with agoraphobia, so they're afraid of leaving the house and going outside. They've created that rule for themselves that if they do something like that, something bad is going to happen, whatever that may be. Okay, let's create a boundary now for yourself. So your boundary is you're going to go outside, but we're not going to leave your front yard, and I'm going to go with you. So we're going to be together. And that's your new boundary. So that's not restrictive. That's actually about growth. That's walking you right to the edge of your comfort zone and then supporting you to grow and become better. So now we've done that and you're able to go in your front yard. We've created that boundary. Now we're like, okay, do I need this rule for myself anymore? I've been out in my front yard with you 30 days in a row and nothing bad has happened. Okay, now maybe let's go for a walk around the block, down the street, but I'm still going to stay with you. So that's the new boundary that you've created for yourself to still keep yourself safe, but it's not from a restrictive process. We're creating that boundary and then we're pushing it until it doesn't serve us anymore. We don't need that rule anymore. And then we're extending that boundary, right? So it's all about growing.
Marty, Johnny, in many ways, when he's talking about Marty, I'm going to throw on the table here that, as we talked about with Carl, the Bible probably is in many ways creates boundaries for you. And Johnny, the systems, the principles, the habit stackings that you have built over time, in many ways, those are your boundaries, right? So as Marty, as you read scripture and read your passages on a daily basis and you process, that creates a boundary for you on how you make decisions and so forth. Would that be a fair assumption of mine, Marty?
Yeah, definitely. So if I feel like the scriptures have made me who I am. That means that I'm aligned with it. So if it doesn't align with the scripture, then that's one of my boundaries right there. I'm not trying to act like I'm super holy or anything like that. Just the basic, the foundation of it. So discipline, consistency, being lazy, complaining, just certain things like that are in the Bible. Those things don't. Those are boundaries I don't cross right there. I'm not doing that.
And it absolutely makes sense. And Johnny, and I come to you the same question, but AJ, I guess what we're in many ways talking about, it's the same way when I published the Business Athlete Manifesto, right?
For sure. Sorry, you froze on me there for a second, Keith.
I got you still, AJ. I think Marty's still here too.
Yeah, I'm with you, AJ. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he was going to come to me next. So what I was going to say about boundaries is I have habits, my systems of life. This is the way that I live, and that creates my boundaries. But what's really important is that, of course, that's my space. But what it really does is it actually creates a boundary for those around me. They understand where they can come and where they can't. They understand. My buddies are going to understand that they're not going to ask me to go drinking, because when I chose to dive into a high-performing lifestyle and live a different way, I created new boundaries for myself. And when I honored those boundaries to the point where they saw I wasn't fucking around, excuse my language, they honored those boundaries. And now the boundaries, they work on both sides of the fence. They keep you where you need to be, but they also keep the people out that you want out of your space. So the boundary it's so powerful. But the crazy thing is that people create boundaries for themselves and they don't stick to them. They don't actually honor them all the time. So the people around them, they won't honor them either. So that people got to understand, if you want to create boundaries that other people are going to obey, you got to do it yourself first. And you got to do it because when they say, someone say a vegan, they call themselves a chegan, they cheat. What do you think? Your buddy that's not a vegan, he's, come on, come and have a hamburger with me, because he knows you really don't subscribe. There's little places where you'll veer. The boundary, just for everybody listening, you got to understand that boundary is powerful. You got to honor it yourself 100% of the time if you want the people around you to do it as well.
It's like that saying, you treat people how to treat you by how you treat yourself, right?
Yes. Yes, that's so powerful, brother.
And I will say, so I love the topic of boundaries, because I do think it's probably one of those terms now that I think has been misused almost in some sort of ways. And and it gets thrown out, just like, despite what the internet would have us believe now, like not everyone that shows self-confidence is a narcissist. Not everyone who disagrees is gaslighting you, right? And but those are almost become real kind of things, right? Where, where they've actually, I think, hampered communication for us, right? And so I think that boundaries, again, even, when we have a boundary, I like to use that visual representation of it being a line and not a wall, because if we're having a conversation about something and we've both established each other's boundaries, but we've put up brick walls, now we can't be open to new ideas. We can't be open to seeing the world in a different way, or shifting our perspective, or just having great communication about something. We can't even see each other. But if we both have a boundary, and it could be about any type of topic that we've created for ourselves, but it's just a line that we've drawn. Yeah, I can still see you guys. We can still visually see each other, communicate with each other. And it gives me the opportunity to always reevaluate myself, right? And be like, I've had this boundary about this thing, but now I'm talking to John and Marty, and they've really shifted my perspective a little bit on this. Do I have an opportunity for growth here? Maybe my boundary needs to be extended a little bit or brought in a little bit. Maybe I'm not doing a good enough job honoring it, or maybe I need to let more in. There's all these possibilities that exist when we keep an open line of communication. And I think boundaries allow us to do that.
And I so agree with what you said at the beginning, brother. Excuse me, about boundaries are demonized. It's because generally speaking, people don't have the balls or the guts to establish them. So of course, if you can't do it, you're gonna talk shit about it. And there's enough people that can't do it. There's more shit talkers talking about boundaries than there are the people that use them. So of course, the masses are going to look at it like, boundaries. Boundaries is what helps you become a better you. You just don't have the discipline to do it. And then on that level too, I love what you're talking about, because your boundaries they're going to shrink and expand, so to speak. They're never going to be in the same spot. And this goes back to saying earlier, if you establish the fact that when you set a boundary, that's it, you're going to follow it. You can move those boundaries around and people won't mess with you. But if every time you move a boundary, it falls apart, you're never going to have the people around you respect your boundaries. So you got to understand, it's just even like with my clients all the time. They start getting in great shape, they're feeling better, and their families are like, when are you going to start eating normal again? I tell them, look, the reason they're doing that is because you have let yourself down so many times before. They're waiting for you to basically fall off again. So if you stick to this long enough, they will get behind you. But you've got to do it long enough for them to believe. And realistically, you have to believe so that you do it long enough, and then they will believe. And then, it's again, comes right back to you lead yourself first. And you lead yourself. And I love what you said, brother. You're basically teaching people how to treat you, because if you won't allow them to do something because of your boundaries, they'll learn real quick what they can and can't do.
Right.
Yeah. AJ, you got to wrap it up.
Yeah. I got about a minute or here so, and then I got to get back in the gym.
All good. Hey,
leave us with a little something about someone that wants to go about setting some boundaries. Where do they start, brother? Because you always give us such great pearls of wisdom in terms of somebody that wants to get out of the gate. How would you say that someone can go about starting their journey of setting boundaries for themselves?
Yeah. So I think it's about identifying the type of person that you want to be. So if you have this clear vision of this is the type of person I want to be, and then we think, okay, what types of things would this person do? Okay. And now I start to compile a list for myself, right? I create a little bit of structure for myself or some boundaries for myself. If we're talking about, hey, I really want to get in a better shape and take control of my health. We were just talking about from the working out perspective with your clients there, John. And they might say, okay, what does that look like? I think people that really take control of their health don't eat fast food. They don't go to McDonald's every day. Okay, here's a boundary I just created for myself, or a rule I created for myself, that I'm not eating fast food anymore. I'm not going to those restaurants. Right. And then now you have a boundary for yourself, right? You've created a boundary. And when you follow it, like you said, when you stick to it, then people are going to stop asking you to go. Maybe your buddies at work every morning are like, hey, let's go get Egg McMuffins. And the first day you're like, I don't eat there anymore. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then you're like, there's day 2, day 3, day 4. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this guy really doesn't eat there anymore. That's a boundary he's created for himself. That's cool. He's looking after himself, trying to take care of himself. And that's really where you start, right? Is just determining like, who do I want to be? What's the type of person I want to be? What do I think the things are that type of person would do? Start small, start with a couple of them, and those rules or those boundaries. And you're giving yourself something out of it though. That's what I always want people to understand about boundaries. It's about growth, and you're giving yourself something, like we said before, and what you mentioned, John. When you're saying no to something, you're really saying yes to something else that's more important for you, that's more in line with the type of person that you want to be and the things you want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's good stuff, brother. So basically, starting simple and starting small. That's what the boundaries. That's really cool, brother. Good stuff. Hey, I think Keith's back there working the keyboard. So, AJ, I know you got to go. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Appreciate you, AJ.
I appreciate you guys too, man. I genuinely look forward to these 15-minute segments like twice a week.
I do too, brother.
And I was talking to Keith last night, just telling him how much I've enjoyed being a part of it and how much I enjoy both of you guys and just getting to have these conversations a couple times a week. I really enjoy it.
We appreciate you, man.
Yep. Yeah, we appreciate you, brother. These conversations are good for everybody, ourselves included.
Great segments, man.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
all right,
brother.
AJ. See you Tuesday, man.